My name is Alexis Thompson and I'm 38 years old. On paper, my life has always looked boring in the exact way bankers and landlords love. I'm a senior accountant at a mid-sized firm. My days are double-checking numbers that other people swear are already correct, catching decimal points that could ruin someone's quarter, and turning chaos into neat little rows of black and white. I don't chase adrenaline. I chase balance sheets. My condo matches my spreadsheets. Calm, controlled, nothing fancy, nothing reckless. 2 bedrooms, neutral walls, a small balcony, with a view of some trees and a sliver of city skyline if you lean just right. The mortgage is in my name. The deed is in my name. Even the chipped mugs next to my color-coded budget binder in the kitchen cabinet are mine, chosen with a coupon and a carefully timed sale. I grew up watching my single mom struggle with overdue bills and red past due stamps. I promised myself somewhere between the third shut-off notice and the night I heard her crying behind a locked bathroom door that I would never, ever be at the mercy of someone else's finances. So I built a life no one could yank out from under me. For a long time, I thought my love life fit that same quiet, sensible pattern. I'd been with my husband Victor for 9 years, 2 dating, 7 married. He's 35 now. When we met, we were both accountants at different firms. He was charming in that I can make amortization schedules sound sexy kind of way. Funny, ambitious, a little impulsive. He used to joke that I was his human emergency fund. I blow things up, he'd say, grinning, "You make sure we don't die." It felt like a good balance. When we got married, we bought a house together, or at least that's how we talked about it. In reality, I put down 80% of the down payment. I'd been saving longer. My credit was spotless. His was still recovering from some spectacularly bad choices in his early 20s. Student loans, a couple of maxed out cards, one car he'd let get repossessed because the bank was being dramatic. So the bank was very clear. The mortgage would be in my name only. The deed, too. "Will add me later when we refinance," he'd said, kissing my forehead as we signed the mountain of papers. "It's just a technicality." We never got around to it. We kept our finances modern and fair, at least on the surface. I had my accounts. He had his. We shared one joint account for household expenses. He made about $85,000 when we married. I was at 110. We split bills proportionally. If anything, I leaned toward overpaying. Independence was a word Victor liked even back then. Financial independence, he'd say, swirling a beer in our tiny starter kitchen. Emotional independence. I never want us to be stuck. I agreed. I didn't want to be stuck either. I didn't want my worth or his to be wrapped up in who paid for what. For years it worked, or I thought it did. About 6 months ago, Victor got promoted, senior manager. His salary jumped to $105,000. I was genuinely thrilled for him. I booked a reservation at his favorite sushi place, bought him a ridiculous boss man mug he pretended to hate, and told everyone how proud I was. That's when things started to tilt. It started small. Little comments that felt like jokes until they didn't. One night, I grabbed the check at dinner out of habit. "You don't have to do that anymore," he said, just a touch too sharp. "I can pay for my own food now. I'm not your charity case." I blinked, hand frozen over the leather folder. "I never thought you were," I said. "I just always grab the check on Fridays. It's our thing." "Yeah, well," he said, forcing a laugh. "I'm just saying, I've got it. I'm independent." A week later, I reminded him his car was due for an oil change. He rolled his eyes. "You're not my mom, Lex. I can handle my own car maintenance." "I was literally just reading the little sticker on your windshield," I said. "It says last month." "You're always monitoring," he muttered. "It's suffocating sometimes." Monitoring. That word lodged somewhere under my ribs and stayed there. Around that time, Victor joined a new boxing gym. At first I was happy. He'd been complaining about sitting too much at work, about wanting to feel strong again. The gym came with a built-in social circle. Men a few years older than him, mostly divorced, mostly loud. They called themselves the Phoenix Brothers, men who rose from the ashes of marriage. Victor said one night, half laughing, half adoring, "They've all been through it. Toxic wives, financial traps, the works. You'd love hearing their stories." I doubted that. Every Tuesday and Thursday, sometimes Saturdays, he'd go out with them after sparring. They hit bars, watched games, and, apparently, dissected the politics of relationships over whiskey. One of the Phoenix brothers, Nate, had been married to Victor's ex-girlfriend, Brianna. before she left him for someone richer. I'd heard Victor tell that story a dozen times. It used to end with a shrug. We were kids. It sucked. I learned. Lately, the story had sharpened. More bitterness, more emphasis on how women use men. 3 months ago, I went with Victor to his company party. It was one of those sleek downtown venues with up lighting and bad pop remixes. I was chatting with one of his colleagues about travel when I heard Victor's voice behind me, just a little too loud, the way he got when he'd had enough to drink to feel invincible. Relationships are basically legalized dependency, he was saying to a small circle of coworkers, mostly men, one woman trying not to look uncomfortable. Most women can't handle a man who doesn't need them financially. They want to feel superior, providers, saviors, whatever. They need the power. Someone asked, "What about Alexis?" I went still. Victor snorted. "Oh, she tries to be chill about it. But you can tell it bothers her that I'm catching up. She's always offering to help with money stuff, to take care of things. It's like she wants to keep me in this little box where she's the responsible one." There was a polite, awkward laugh. I was standing maybe 20 feet away, close enough that there was no way he didn't know I could hear. My cheeks burned, my hands went cold. For years, I'd thought we were a team. That me tracking due dates and interest rates, while he handled repairs and spontaneity, was just division of labor. Now he was recasting it as some kind of power play. On the drive home, the car felt smaller than usual. The city blurred past in streaks of white and red. "That was pretty harsh," I said finally, my voice steadier than I felt. "What you said at the party." He didn't look at me. "The truth hurts sometimes?" "What truth?" I asked. "That I celebrated your promotion? That I booked your favorite restaurant? That I supported you every step of the way?" "You supported me," he said, "as long as I stayed in my lane, beneath you, needing you." I stared at him. "That's not even remotely true and you know it." He laughed, humorless. "You're not woman enough to handle my independence, Alexis, just admit it." The words hit harder than any punch he'd taken at that boxing gym. I opened my mouth, closed it again. There were 100 things I could have said. That independence isn't measured by who pays which bill. That love isn't a power struggle. That if he really thought I wanted him beneath me, he didn't know me at all. Instead, I turned my eyes back to the road and let silence fill the car. He took my quiet as surrender. I let him. The next month, things escalated. He started moving money from our joint account into his personal one. Not massive amounts, but enough that I noticed. 300 here, 500 there. When I asked about it, he didn't even flinch. "I'm protecting my assets," he said. "From what?" I asked. "From the mortgage company you don't pay." "From you," he said. "Women use money to control men. I'm not going to be one of your spreadsheets, Alexis. I have never stopped you from spending money," I said quietly, "ever." "You don't get it," he said. "You're not woman enough to handle a man who doesn't need you." That was the second time he said it. The first time it cracked something in me. The second time it broke it clean in half. That night, after he fell asleep in our bed, snoring softly, one arm flung over the side like this was just any other Tuesday, I sat alone at the kitchen table. The budget binder was open in front of me. The numbers were neat. My hands felt strangely steady. The house deed was in my name, only mine. The investment accounts I'd opened in my early 20s, before I'd ever heard the name Victor Thompson, were in my name, only mine. I opened my laptop and drafted an email to a divorce attorney a colleague had mentioned once in passing. "Hi James," I typed. "I think my marriage is over. I'd like to understand my options." Before I hit send, I paused. On my phone, I scrolled through my contacts until I reached Doris, Victor's mother. 68 years old, living alone in a sketchy apartment complex. He always said he would help her out of someday when he was more established. He'd been more established for a while now. Somehow, someday never came. I thought of her tiny kitchen, her stories about loud neighbors, the way her hands shook a little when she counted out change for groceries. I hit send on the email to James. Then I stared at Doris's name for a very long time, an idea forming so slowly it almost felt like it wasn't mine. If Victor wanted his independence so badly, I wondered how he'd feel when his mother found out who had truly been taking care of him all along. James replied before I even finished my first cup of coffee the next morning. "Come in this afternoon if you can," the email said. "I have a 3:30 slot. We'll go over everything." I stared at the screen for a moment, then looked over at the closed bedroom door. Victor was still asleep, his alarm not due to go off for another 45 minutes. For 9 years, our mornings had been a quiet choreography. Me making coffee, him hogging the bathroom, both of us weaving around each other like we'd practiced. I moved through the kitchen like it was any other day. Coffee, toast, my lunch in a glass container. The motions were the same. The meaning had shifted. At 7:05, his alarm blared. At 7:12, he stumbled out in sweatpants and a t-shirt, scratching his jaw. "Morning," I said. He grunted, poured himself coffee, didn't look at me. We moved around each other without touching. By the time I left for work, the email to James felt like a second. Secret life. I checked my phone at red lights just to make sure the appointment hadn't magically disappeared. It didn't. James's office was on the 20th floor of a glass box downtown. The lobby smelled like polished stone and money. A receptionist with perfect eyeliner greeted me by name. "Ms. Thompson, James will be right with you. Can I get you water? Coffee?" "I'm okay," I lied. James was in his mid-40s, with kind eyes and the tired posture of a man who'd heard every version of It's Complicated 300 times. We sat across from each other at his neat desk. He listened while I told him everything about the house, the finances, the Phoenix brothers, the comments about independence, the way Victor's entire personality had tilted the moment his paycheck caught up to mine. I didn't cry. My voice only shook once when I repeated the line, "You're not woman enough to handle my independence." James's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "Okay," he said, folding his hands. "First, I'm sorry you're going through this. Second, you're in a significantly stronger position than you think." He pulled a legal pad closer. "Let's break this down. The house, you bought it before the marriage, correct?" "We closed 3 months before the wedding," I said. "The mortgage is in my name, the deed too." His credit wasn't great, so legally, the property is premarital, James said. "You've continued to pay the mortgage from your account." "Yes." He transfers his share into the joint account every month, but the actual mortgage payment, property taxes, insurance, they all come out of my checking. Do you have records of that?" I almost laughed. "I have records of everything." "Good," he said, actually smiling. "We'll need those." He asked about my investments next. I felt my stomach tighten. "I started investing when I was 22, I said. "Index funds, some blue chip stocks. I never stopped. All in my name. All before Victor." "Does he know about them?" James asked. "Not really," I said. "He knows I'm comfortable, but he's always been weird about money and control. So I never went into detail. It never seemed relevant. We have separate accounts, separate retirement. We agreed on that from the start." "Those assets are premarital as well," James said. "As long as we can show there wasn't commingling, or that any contributions during the marriage came from your income and were clearly traced, we're solid." He scribbled something, then looked up. "Based on what you've told me, here's the likely outcome if he fights dirty. He'll get his personal belongings, his car if it's in his name, maybe a small cash settlement to make this go away. He will not get half your house, and he will not get half your investments. Alimony is a long shot. You earn more, but his salary is solid, and the marriage, while not short, isn't long enough to justify what he'll probably ask for." I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. "So, I'm not trapped," I said. "You're not trapped," he said. "In fact, you're about as untangled as someone in a 9-year marriage can be, which makes me suspect he's going to scream about abuse and control the moment you make a move." "He already has," I murmured. James nodded, unsurprised. "Do you want to file?" he asked gently. I thought of Victor at that company party, smirking as he performed his newfound philosophy for his co-workers. Of the way his fingers moved money quietly out of our joint account, like he was testing the balance between us. I thought of Doris sitting alone in that dim little apartment he never had time to help her leave. "Yes," I said, "I want to file." "All right." James slid a stack of papers toward me. "We'll file this week. While we're at it, if there's anyone you want in your corner physically, especially someone he's neglected or used as a prop for his good son persona, now is the time to think about that." His eyes flicked to mine in a way that made me wonder if he was reading my thoughts. "Like his mother?" I asked quietly. James didn't flinch. "Like his mother." On my way home, I drove past Doris's complex. I'd been there plenty of times. Holidays, the occasional Sunday lunch. It was one of those aging buildings with peeling paint and a parking lot full of cars that all looked like they were one mechanical failure away from the junkyard. Doris's apartment was on the 2nd floor. I sat in my car staring up at her window for a full 3 minutes before I forced myself out. She opened the door with a dish towel in her hand and surprise in her eyes. "Alexis," she said. "Well, this is a nice surprise. Come in, honey." Her living room was neat but tired. The floral couch sagged. The linoleum in the kitchen had a crack running through it like a fault line. "How are you?" I asked. "Oh, you know," she said, waving it off. "Same old, same old. The neighbors fight too loud, the elevator squeaks, but rent's cheap." She didn't mention the way she flinched every time a truck roared by, rattling the windows. We sat at her little kitchen table. I wrapped my fingers around a mug of instant coffee, mostly to have something to hold on to. "Doris," I said, "can I ask you something? A little big?" She straightened, reading my tone. "Of course." I took a breath. "Victor and I are getting divorced," I said. Her face fell, but she didn't look surprised, just deeply, deeply tired. "I'm so sorry," she said softly. I could tell something was wrong. "He's been different. He's been very focused on being independent," I said, the word tasting sour. She huffed a humorless laugh. "Independent, huh? Is that what we're calling acting like a stranger now?" I swallowed. "The house is in my name," I said. "Legally. I've already spoken to a lawyer. Victor will need to move out eventually. But I have a guest room, a safe neighborhood, and I was wondering if you would like to move in with me." She blinked. "What?" she whispered. "You've always been kind to me," I said. "You've never asked for anything, and I know this building is not great. I can't promise perfection, but I can promise a better lock on the door and fewer screaming matches through the walls. There would be no rent, just company." Tears welled in her eyes so fast they startled both of us. "Are you sure?" she asked. "Oh, honey, I don't want to be a burden. And Victor doesn't get to decide where you're safe," I said, more sharply than I intended. "He's had years to help you. I'm done waiting for him to grow up." She studied my face for a long moment, as if weighing whether this was generosity or revenge. Maybe it was both. "I don't have much," she said finally. "A bed, some boxes, a ridiculous number of quilting supplies." "We'll make it work," I said. "I'll talk to James about the legal side, but if you want it, the room is yours." She covered her mouth with one hand. Her shoulders shook. "Oh, sweetheart," she whispered. "I'd love to. I'd really, really love to." We moved fast after that. James confirmed there was nothing illegal about me offering her the room. It was my house. I could have whoever I wanted as a tenant, or in her case, a symbolic tenant. He even suggested, with a little smile, that we draw up a simple $1 a month agreement to make it airtight. "Paperwork," he said. "Judges love paperwork." We filed the divorce petition on a Thursday morning. Victor was at work, still riding the high of his promotion and his nightly rhetoric sessions with the Phoenix brothers. On Saturday, he left for an all-day Phoenix retreat. Boxing in the morning, barbecue and beer after. Then some sort of bonfire I didn't ask questions about. He kissed the air next to my cheek on his way out, like I was a relative, not a wife. "Don't wait up," he said, already halfway down the hall. "I won't," I said. As soon as his car pulled away, I grabbed my keys. Doris's belongings fit into a small U-Haul in the back of my SUV. Her mattress, her dresser, a few boxes of dishes and photo albums. The rest was fabric, sewing machines, and bins labeled batting and backing and projects to finish someday. "Are you sure about this?" she asked again as we carried boxes up my stairs. "Absolutely," I said, and I was. We set up the guest room together. Fresh sheets, her quilt on the bed, her framed photos on the dresser. Victor at 6 with a missing tooth. Victor at 10 with a bad haircut. Victor at 18 holding a community college certificate. She touched one of the frames, her fingers lingering on his face. "He was such a sweet boy," she murmured. "I don't know where he went." I didn't have an answer. By the time we were done, the sun was setting. The house felt different with another heartbeat in it. Warmer somehow, despite everything. "Thank you," Doris said as we stood in the doorway of her new room. "Whatever happens with you and Victor, I won't forget this." I believed her. Monday morning, Victor came home. He didn't come in quiet. The front door swung open with the kind of force that made it bang against the stopper. I was in the kitchen with Doris making coffee. He stopped dead when he saw his mother at the table in one of my chipped mugs, wearing her faded blue robe. "What is my mother doing here?" he exploded. Doris flinched. I didn't. "I invited her to move in," I said. "She needs a safer place to live." "You did what?" he shouted. "You can't just move people into our house without asking me." I wiped my hands on a towel, then met his eyes. "Check the deed, Victor," I said calmly. "It's my house." His mouth opened, closed. "That's a technicality," he said finally. "We agreed it was ours." "We also agreed we'd add you later," I said. "We never did. You've been very clear lately about your independence. I'm just respecting it." His gaze darted between me and his mother. "This is about control," he spat. "You're trying to manipulate me." "Victor," Doris said softly. She's offering me a safe home. That's not manipulation. That's kindness. Stay out of this, Mom, he snapped. This is between me and my wife. Your wife, I said, filed for divorce 4 days ago. I picked up the manila envelope from the counter and held it out to him. For a moment he just stared at it, like it was written in a language he couldn't read. Then he snatched it from my hand, flipped through the pages, and went scarlet. You're divorcing me because I'm successful, he shouted. Because I finally make as much as you? I'm divorcing you, I said, voice low but steady. Because you treat me like garbage and openly disrespect our marriage. The money is just the amplifier. This is about control, he repeated. Like if he said it enough, it would become true. You can't handle that I'm independent. You've always wanted me beneath you, dependent on you. You're not woman enough to handle a man who stands on his own 2 feet. There it was again. That line, the one that had started all of this. I looked at him for a very long time. At the man who'd once kissed my knuckles in our first apartment and told me I was the best thing that had ever happened to him. You're right, I said quietly. He blinked. What? You're right, I repeated. I'm not woman enough to handle your kind of independence. The kind that uses people and calls it freedom. His mouth worked soundlessly. I'll sleep in the guest room, he said, finally grasping for control. Until this cools down? I glanced at Doris sitting in the doorway of her new life. No, I said, you won't. He went white. What did you do? He whispered. I called a lawyer, I said, and I made a plan. He didn't speak for a full 10 seconds. Then he laughed, a dry, disbelieving sound that didn't quite reach his eyes. You're serious. Dead serious, I said. This is insane, he said, pacing the kitchen. You can't just decide this unilaterally. Marriage is supposed to be a partnership. Partnerships require respect, I said. And you traded that for punchlines months ago. He turned sharply toward his mother. Mom, tell her she's being ridiculous. Doris folded her hands around her mug. Her voice was calm but firm. She's not ridiculous, Victor. She's protecting herself. Protecting herself from me? He said, incredulous. I'm the one who's been under attack here. Every decision, every comment, she twists it into control. I let him talk. It was like watching someone try to talk a hole in the ocean. Alexis, he said, shifting tactics, softening his tone. I think you're overreacting. You're just hurt. We can go to counseling. Fix this. I stared at him. You told your coworkers that marriage is legalized dependency, that women use men for money and attention. You moved money from our joint account into your personal one and called it protection. You've spent the last 6 months calling me controlling for reminding you to get an oil change. He flinched but didn't back down. You're twisting everything. That's what you do. You twist it so you can feel superior. I don't need to twist anything, Victor, I said. You're doing a great job showing everyone exactly who you are. He slammed the divorce papers onto the counter. You're not going to win, you know. You can't just take the house and everything else. The law doesn't work that way. Actually, I said, it does. My lawyer explained it this morning. You have a lawyer? I tilted my head. You didn't think I'd just wing it, did you? For the first time, I saw fear flicker across his face. Real fear, not anger pretending to be it. He tried again. This is about your ego. You can't stand that I'm finally your equal. You're not my equal, Victor, I said quietly. Not because of money or status or anything on paper. You're not my equal because you stopped respecting me the second I stopped being useful to your narrative. He stood frozen in the doorway for a long time, like a man realizing he'd just stepped off a ledge he didn't see coming. Then he turned and stormed upstairs. Doris and I sat in silence, the sound of his footsteps echoing overhead. When he came back down 10 minutes later, he was holding a duffel bag. Fine, he said. You want independence? You've got it. I'm leaving. But don't think this is over. You'll be hearing from my lawyer. He shoved past me and slammed the door on his way out. The house fell still. Doris exhaled shakily. Are you all right, honey? I nodded, though my hands were trembling. I will be. She looked toward the closed door. He's not going to let this go easily. No, I said. But neither will I. 2 days later, a thick envelope arrived by courier. Law offices of Richard Hanley, the return address read. I slid it open at the counter, already knowing what I'd find. Formal notice of representation. Demand for disclosure of all marital assets. Allegations of emotional and financial manipulation. It was almost funny how predictable it was. James laughed when I brought the letter to his office. They always use the same script, he said. Accuse the stable spouse of control and hope you'll panic. I'm not panicking, I said. Good, he said. Because you don't have to. I'll send a response reminding them that your property is premarital, your accounts are separate, and your generosity toward his mother doesn't constitute abuse. Generosity, I repeated, tasting the word. He smiled faintly. That's what it is, Alexis. Generosity, not strategy. Maybe so, but I couldn't ignore how perfectly poetic it was. That the man who mocked me for being too controlling was about to discover what real control looked like in legal form and ink. The next morning, Victor decided to test the narrative. He posted on Facebook. Some women weaponize money to feel powerful. They call it boundaries, but it's really just control. If you've ever felt trapped by someone pretending to help, you're not alone. Independence. #MenRise, too. Within an hour, the post had a dozen comments from his Phoenix brothers. Preach, man. Stay strong, brother. Women hate when you stop letting them be your boss. Then a curious one from an old coworker of his. Wait, didn't she just take your mom in for free? Followed by another. I thought you made good money now. How's that trapped? He deleted the post 15 minutes later. That night, I found him parked outside the house. He didn't get out of the car, just sat there staring at the windows. Doris peeked through the curtain. He's been sitting there for half an hour, she whispered. Let him, I said. Eventually, the car pulled away. Friday morning, James called. His attorney wants mediation, he said. Next Wednesday. Expect them to ask for half of everything. I figured, I said, they can ask. He chuckled. I like your style. I like math, I said, it doesn't lie. On Sunday, Victor showed up again. This time he wasn't alone. 3 of the Phoenix brothers were with him, standing on my front porch like some parody of solidarity. Arms crossed, sunglasses on, the whole swaggering posture of men who've seen too many self-help podcasts. Doris opened the door before I could stop her. Can I help you boys? She asked, her voice honeyed but sharp. Victor stepped forward. We're here to pick up a few things, he said. My stuff. Maybe a couple of things that are ours. I stepped beside her. Everything you own is boxed in the garage, I said. Your name's on the labels. One of the men, a stocky one with a shaved head, snorted. You can't evict a man from his own home. It's not his home, I said. Check the records. That's financial abuse, another chimed in. Weaponizing housing to assert dominance. Classic. Doris arched an eyebrow. She's giving me free rent, boys. What would you call that? Hostile generosity? The stocky one muttered something under his breath. I folded my arms. If you'd like to keep this civil, you're welcome to load the labeled boxes and leave. If you'd prefer drama, I'll call the police for trespassing. Victor's jaw worked, but he said nothing. After a moment, he turned sharply toward his friends. Let's go. As they walked down the steps, Doris called out, Try not to trip over your independence. One of them nearly did. That night, Victor texted me. Victor, you think you've won because you blindsided me? This isn't over. You'll regret this when the truth comes out. Me. The truth already did. You just didn't like the ending. He didn't reply, but I knew he would. Men like Victor don't know how to stop performing when they've lost the audience. By Monday morning, James had received their official list of demands. Half the house, half my investments. Alimony for lifestyle adjustment. $20,000 for emotional damages. I nearly laughed. He really went with emotional damages? Oh yes, James said. And get this. He's also demanding that Doris vacate the premises immediately, claiming her presence constitutes harassment. I looked at him. Please tell me you're joking. I wish I were, he grinned, but don't worry, we're ready. He handed me a folder filled with organized spreadsheets, transaction logs, and property documents. We'll let the math talk. Good, I said, because I'm done talking. Wednesday arrived, mediation day. The air in James's office felt heavier than usual, like it had absorbed too many whispered secrets. Victor showed up in a suit that didn't quite fit anymore, too tight across the shoulders, sleeves slightly short. His lawyer, Hanley, carried himself like he'd been waiting all week to say gotcha. 2 of the Phoenix brothers waited outside in the hall, glaring through the glass, as if intimidation could change numbers on a deed. James greeted them politely, the way a surgeon greets a patient who's already bleeding. We sat across from each other at the long table. Victor smirked. Nice of you to show up, Alexis. I was worried you'd hide behind your spreadsheets. Spreadsheets are reliable, I said, unlike some people. Hanley cleared his throat. Let's begin. Hanley started strong, voice smooth with the confidence of a man who thought he was walking into an easy win. My client, he said, is seeking an equitable division of assets, including half of the marital residence, half of Mrs. Thompson's investment portfolio, and appropriate alimony to ensure the maintenance of his accustomed lifestyle. James didn't even blink. The residence, he said calmly, is not marital property. It was purchased solely by Ms. Thompson prior to the marriage. The mortgage, taxes, and all associated costs were paid exclusively from her personal accounts. Here are 5 years of bank statements verifying that. Hanley frowned. My client made regular contributions to a joint account used for household expenses. That constitutes commingling, not of real property, James said, sliding another folder across the table. The joint account was used for groceries, utilities, and entertainment expenses, averaging $1,200 per month. The mortgage alone was $300. All paid from Ms. Thompson's account. Hanley's frown deepened. Victor leaned back, smirking faintly. You really think the court will believe I didn't contribute? I lived there, I fixed things, I made that house a home. James smiled just enough to be polite. That's very touching, Mr. Thompson. An emotional investment doesn't appear on a deed. Hanley bristled. We also intend to pursue alimony. My client's income is significantly lower than Ms. Thompson's. Your client makes $105,000 a year, James said. Ms. Thompson makes $118,000. The difference is negligible. Furthermore, he's been vocal on social media about his financial independence. I'd be happy to submit screenshots of those posts as evidence. Victor stiffened. Those were personal reflections, he said, not legal statements. Maybe not, James said mildly. But they do demonstrate an absence of financial dependence, which undermines any claim for alimony. Hanley shifted tactics. We'll also be requesting that Ms. Thompson's tenant vacate the property immediately. I arched an eyebrow. My tenant? Your mother, Hanley said to Victor. Correct. She's not a tenant, Victor snapped. She's my mother. James interjected smoothly. Actually, she is a tenant. Ms. Thompson has a formal $1 a month rental agreement with her, perfectly legal, filed and notarized, which means any attempt to evict her would violate tenancy law. Hanley blinked, caught off guard. You made it a lease? James's tone was light. Paperwork. Judges love paperwork. Across the table, Victor's smugness wavered. You can't do that, he said. She's my mom. You've ignored her for years, I said quietly. Now she has a safe home. You should be happy for her. This is about humiliation, he spat. You moved her in to embarrass me. I met his eyes. No, Victor. I moved her in to show you what compassion looks like. Hanley's jaw tightened. Let's refocus. Mr. Thompson is also entitled to an equitable share of any investment growth during the marriage. James opened a folder like a magician preparing his final trick. Ms. Thompson's portfolio was established 11 years before the marriage. Growth during the marriage came from reinvested dividends, not new contributions. Here are the account statements and timestamps. All funds are traceable to premarital assets. Hanley hesitated. Victor's smirk evaporated. James pressed the advantage. If anything, Mr. Thompson owes Ms. Thompson back rent. Based on her mortgage payments and property costs, his share would total approximately $84,000. What? Victor barked. You lived rent-free in a property you didn't own, James said evenly. You contributed only to utilities and groceries. That's generosity, not obligation. Hanley sputtered. That's absurd. But James wasn't finished. He clicked his laptop and turned it toward the table. Now, I'd like to submit supplemental evidence. A video from 3 months ago, recorded via Ms. Thompson's doorbell camera. My pulse thrummed, but I kept my face calm. On the screen, Victor appeared, standing in our driveway at night, phone pressed to his ear, voice unmistakable. Yeah, man, he was saying, laughing. Once I hit senior director, I'm divorcing Alexis. I'll take half her stuff and finally be free. These Phoenix brothers are right. Marriage is just a paycheck for women until you flip it on them. The room went silent except for the faint hum of the AC. Victor went white. That's taken out of context, he said finally, voice trembling. I was joking. James didn't blink. What context makes that better? Even Hanley didn't answer. He just rubbed his forehead. Let's talk settlement, James said smoothly. Ms. Thompson proposes that Mr. Thompson retain his personal vehicle, his clothing, his personal electronics, and a $10,000 cash settlement. No alimony. Each party pays their own attorney fees. That's insulting, Hanley said, though his voice lacked conviction. It's generous, James said, given the evidence. Victor slammed his palm on the table. This is manipulation. You're using money to... Victor, I said quietly, you've accused me of controlling you for years. But you were the one planning to use me. You said it yourself. I just stopped being your bank. He turned to his lawyer. I want to go to court. Hanley leaned closer to him, voice low, but not low enough. If we go to court, she'll subpoena your friends, play that video again, and ask the judge to consider restitution for rent. You'll walk out with debt. Victor's nostrils flared, his jaw clenched. The Phoenix brothers said. Hanley cut him off. The Phoenix brothers aren't lawyers, and they're idiots. James and I exchanged a look. Take the offer, Hanley said finally, weary. It's the best you'll get. Victor stared at the table for a long moment, then said bitterly, fine. 10,000, whatever. James nodded, already drawing up the paperwork. The pen in Victor's hand trembled slightly as he signed his name. When it was done, he shoved the papers back across the table. I hope you're happy, he said. I am, I said, for the first time in a long time. He laughed without humor. You'll miss me when there's no one left to hate. I stood, gathering my bag, your confusing hate with relief. As I walked toward the door, I caught a glimpse of his reflection in the glass. Small, angry, and suddenly uncertain. Outside, the Phoenix brothers were waiting. One of them called, You win this round, Lex, but Karma's a woman too. Then I guess I'm in good company, I said, and kept walking. That night, Doris and I had dinner together. Pasta, salad, a glass of red wine each. She waited until I set my fork down. How bad was it? Bad, I said, then smiled faintly. For him. She let out a low chuckle. I don't know whether to be proud of you or terrified. Both are fine, I said. We ate in comfortable silence for a while. The house felt different now. Lighter, quieter, like something toxic had been drained from its walls. Finally, Doris spoke again. Do you think he'll come around? Someday? I looked toward the window where the last streaks of daylight were fading. Maybe, I said. But even if he does, it won't matter. Some lessons only work when they hurt. Doris nodded slowly. You did the right thing, Alexis. I know, I said, but it still feels strange, like I won a war I never wanted to fight. She reached across the table, covering my hand with hers. That's what survival feels like, honey. Strange, quiet, but free. I squeezed her fingers gently. Free, I repeated. I could get used to that. The morning after mediation, the house was eerily calm. The kind of silence that follows a storm, not peaceful exactly, just the absence of thunder. Doris was humming softly in the kitchen, slicing fruit. The smell of coffee drifted through the air. I should have felt triumphant. Instead, I felt hollow. It wasn't victory, it was vacuum. Then my phone buzzed. Victor, you think you've won? This isn't over. I didn't answer. An hour later, I heard tires screech outside. When I peeked through the blinds, I saw Victor's car parked crookedly across the curb. He stumbled out, followed by 3 Phoenix brothers, loud, sunburned, and clearly drunk, even though it was barely 11 a.m. Oh, for heaven's sake, Doris muttered, setting down the knife. Victor staggered toward the porch. You ruined my life, Alexis, he shouted. You turned my own mother against me. Doris stepped out before I could. Victor, go home, she said. This is my home, he yelled. She stole it from me. Check the deed, Doris said dryly. Laughter erupted from one of the Phoenix brothers, then died when I appeared behind her, phone in hand. You have 30 seconds to get off my property, I said, or I call the sheriff. Go ahead, Victor sneered. Tell them how you financially abused your husband and kidnapped his mother. I hit record on my phone. Smile then. Let's add trespassing to your list. He took a step forward, swaying. You think you're clever, don't you? Filing paperwork, hiding behind lawyers. You were nothing without me. That's funny, I said softly. Because without me, you don't even have a place to stand right now. He lunged, not at me exactly, more like toward the porch railing. His foot caught on the step, and he went sprawling face first into the grass. The Phoenix brothers froze. One muttered, Dude, come on, and helped him up. I didn't move, Doris didn't either. Victor's face was streaked with dirt. His pride, already crumbling, cracked completely. You'll regret this, he hissed. Maybe, I said, but I'll regret it from a place that's mine. He turned, shoved his friends away, and stumbled back to the car. They left without another word. That night, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. Alexis, this is Paul Whitaker, Victor's boss. My stomach tightened. Is he all right? Paul hesitated. Physically, yes, but... Listen, I wanted to give you a heads up. There have been complaints at work. Victor's been confronting married coworkers, calling them brainwashed by the matriarchy. HR's involved. If he doesn't stop, they'll let him go. I closed my eyes. Thank you for telling me. I'm sorry, Paul said. He used to be a good employee. I don't know what happened. I do, I said quietly. He joined a club that taught him independence means isolation. Paul sighed. That's exactly it. 2 weeks later, the official divorce decree arrived in the mail. Final. Irrevocable. Signed and sealed. $10,000 transferred to Victor's account. No alimony, no property split, no more shared anything. James called to congratulate me. Cleanest resolution I've seen in years, he said. And Doris's lease? Genius. I just wanted her safe, I said. That's what makes it brilliant, he replied. The next part wasn't as clean. Victor lost his job the following week, apparently, after the mediation footage surfaced. Yes, someone at his firm saw the ring video floating through mutual friends. He had marched into a team meeting and given an unsolicited speech about financial oppression in marriage. He pointed to two happily married women in his department and told them they were victims who didn't know it yet. HR escorted him out by lunch. When I heard, I didn't even feel vindicated. Just sad. It was like watching someone set fire to the last bridge still standing and call it freedom. A few days later, Doris found a folded note slipped under the door. Victor's handwriting. You win. I have nowhere to go. Can I please come back, just for a while? I'll sign anything. A post-nup, whatever you want. Please. Doris looked at me, eyes soft. What do you want to do, honey? I stared at the paper, the shaky scrawl of a man who'd finally run out of audiences. Nothing, I said. He wanted independence, now he has it. She nodded slowly, slipped the note into the trash, and we didn't speak of it again. 3 weeks later, during one of our evening coffees, Doris chuckled at something on her phone. Look at this, she said, turning the screen toward me. It was a Facebook post from Brenda, leader of the Phoenix Brothers sister group, the Phoenix Sisters. Sometimes you have to cut toxic people out of your life, even those who can't keep up with your energy. Below it, Victor had commented, I thought we were family. Brenda had blocked him. Doris laughed until she cried. Life moved on. Doris started quilting again. We turned the garage into her studio, a neat little haven of color and fabric. She joined a senior social club, made friends, and eventually started dating a man named Harold, a retired librarian who brought her fresh tulips every Friday. They were adorable. As for me, I learned the texture of quiet happiness again. I started volunteering at a local financial literacy program on weekends, watching single moms and young women learn to balance budgets, save, invest. It felt like closing a circle I didn't know was open. Then, one Saturday at the hardware store, I met Adam. He was buying sandpaper. I was looking for a new drill bit. We both reached for the same pack, laughed, and struck up a conversation. Somewhere between aisles of power tools and paint swatches, he made me smile in a way I hadn't in years. When I told him my ex once said I wasn't woman enough to handle his independence, Adam grinned. Sounds like he wasn't man enough to deserve you. I laughed. You might be right. We didn't rush anything. Coffee first, then dinners. No promises, no declarations. Just slow, steady warmth. One evening, as Doris and I sat on the porch watching the sunset, she spoke softly. You know what the irony is, Alexis? She said. Victor spent so much time trying to prove he didn't need anyone. He forgot how to be a decent human being. Now he's dependent on everyone else's charity. I nodded. Meanwhile, you and I are doing just fine. Not independent. Interdependent. The healthy kind. She smiled. Exactly. Family should be that way. People helping each other, not competing for power. I glanced at her. You think he'll ever figure that out? Maybe, she said. But he'll have to do it without dragging you down again. I smiled faintly. That's one lesson I've learned for good. 2 months later, James called again, laughing. Guess who I ran into at court today, he said. Who? Hanley, Victor's old lawyer. He says your case has become a cautionary tale he uses for clients. Apparently he calls it the independence paradox. I snorted. That sounds dramatic. He said it's the best example he's seen of poetic justice. You did the right thing for the right reasons, and it completely destroyed your ex's narrative. I didn't mean to destroy him, I said. I know, James said. That's what makes it poetic. The next morning, Doris handed me an envelope with a dollar bill inside. What's this? I asked, smiling. Rent, she said. Gotta keep it legal. I laughed. You know that's unnecessary. Oh, I know, she said, slipping it onto the counter. But it makes me feel independent. I grinned. Touché. She winked. Besides, you need the paperwork. Judges love paperwork. Later that night, as I sat on the porch with a cup of tea, I thought about everything that had happened. The words, the walls, the silence, the noise. Victor had wanted to rise from the ashes. I'd simply chosen not to burn. And somehow that made all the difference.